the ruthless aura hack that makes people obey you instinctively. Power is not revealed through force, but through presence. Carl Jung. Have you ever met someone whose energy alone seemed to command the room? In today's video, the ruthless aura hack that makes people obey you instinctively. Carl Jung's dark wisdom. We'll explore how true power isn't loud or aggressive, but silent, magnetic, and deeply psychological. Carl Jung believed that when you master your inner world, others unconsciously adjust to your energy, not because you control them, but because you control yourself. As you watch, ask yourself, how can I apply these principles to become calmer, more grounded, and naturally influential in my daily life? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's grow together through spiritual wisdom. 1. Power begins with unshakable certainty. True dominance begins within the mind, where unshakable certainty takes root. It is not about control over others, but mastery over oneself. Confidence, restraint, and calculated silence form the sacred triangle of real power. This kind of authority doesn't shout or demand attention. It radiates through the calm energy of someone who knows exactly who they are. In spirituality and awakening, this inner stillness becomes a force that naturally commands respect. When your mind is steady, your energy speaks louder than words. People sense it instinctively. They feel your certainty before you even open your mouth. Weak souls often over-explain because they crave approval. They try to fill silence with noise, hoping others will understand their worth. But those who have walked the path of inner mastery understand that silence is power. In silence, your energy expands and begins to lead. Carl Jung described this as individuation, the process of becoming whole, where your outer behavior mirrors your inner truth. When you embody this state, you no longer have to convince anyone of your value. Your aura already declares it with quiet confidence. The world bends subtly around you because your energy vibrates at the frequency of certainty. Certainty radiates inevitability. People sense that you cannot be moved, not because of dominance or aggression, but because your presence carries the weight of something unshakable. This is energetic gravity, the magnetic pull of coherence between your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Others feel safer following your lead because your energy represents alignment. In this way, spirituality merges with psychology. Your aura becomes a living projection of inner balance. You don't control others. You simply influence them by being energetically congruent. Reality responds to coherence the same way metal responds to a magnet. This ruthless aura is not about cruelty, it is about discipline. You cultivate it by mastering your impulses, by choosing restraint when your ego wants validation. Each time you hold your silence, you strengthen your energetic field. Each time you resist explaining yourself, you deepen your spiritual gravity. Over time, your presence grows denser, steadier, and more commanding. People may not know why they respect you, but they will feel that resistance against you is futile. You embody inevitability, and inevitability is the most powerful form of persuasion. The truly awakened understand that power is not taken. It is earned through alignment. Spiritual awakening transforms chaos into clarity, turning insecurity into presence. The moment you stop reacting to everything around you, you begin to master the unseen. Your aura becomes your armor, your silence becomes your strategy, and your certainty becomes your command. Jung once said, Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. When you awaken, you no longer chase influence, you become influence. The ruthless aura, then, is the result of ruthless inner work, the quiet dismantling of fear, doubt, and ego. When you no longer waver in your truth, your energy becomes immovable. That immovability is what others call power, but what the awakened know as presence. And in that presence, control dissolves, because everything around you naturally obeys the rhythm of your certainty. Comment below. I am unshakable in my power. If you're ready to embody the kind of certainty that makes others feel your presence before you even speak. This is where true influence begins, not in control, but in unwavering belief in who you are. Let this be your declaration of inner strength and spiritual wisdom. 2. The mask of controlled power. Your aura is not who you are, but what you allow the world to see. It's the outer reflection of your inner state, the energy that announces your presence before your words ever do. In the realm of power, perception is everything. And as Machiavelli once said, people judge more by appearances than by truth. That's why the one who controls appearances controls the narrative. When you keep your emotions hidden and your expression calm, you create an air of mystery that compels others to wonder, to respect, and even to fear losing your approval. True power doesn't seek attention. It commands it effortlessly through silence, restraint, and the kind of confidence that doesn't need to prove itself. The aura of someone who moves with intention, who speaks only when necessary, and who radiates calm certainty is an aura that bends reality around it. This mastery over energy is not manipulation, it's spirituality in motion. It's the essence of spiritual growth, where you no longer react from ego or insecurity, but from awareness and balance. Every time you withhold the impulse to explain, defend, or prove yourself, you strengthen the invisible field of your aura. Your silence becomes a fortress, your stillness, a form of control. This doesn't mean hiding your truth. It means embodying it so deeply that you no longer need to perform it. The more emotionally centered you become, the more others feel your power without you ever having to display it. When your face remains unreadable and your movements deliberate, you broadcast an energy of inner authority that makes others instinctively align with your rhythm. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole within oneself, and this is its spiritual dimension. When you integrate your shadow, when you know your light and your darkness equally, you stop leaking energy through emotional chaos. You stop chasing validation and instead become the source of it. Your energy becomes sovereign, your aura stable, and your very presence begins to rewire how others behave around you. They sense something different, something disciplined yet unspoken, like a quiet storm. This is the mask of controlled power, not a disguise to deceive, but a tool to preserve. The world doesn't need to see your turmoil. It needs to feel your composure. Move slowly, deliberately, as if every gesture is sacred. Let your silence carry the weight of 1,000 words. Real power is quiet because it doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists. When you enter a room with calm confidence and your energy is contained rather than scattered, you communicate a truth deeper than speech, that you are in command of yourself. And when you master yourself, others naturally fall in sync with that vibration. They respect what they can't fully read, and they follow what they can't easily understand. That is the paradox of spiritual power. It's invisible, but impossible to ignore. In mastering your aura, you transcend the superficial games of dominance and step into a higher form of control. Influence born from presence, not performance. 3. Fear as a tool of control. Fear, when mastered with spiritual wisdom and understood through the teachings of Carl Jung, becomes one of the most subtle yet powerful forces of influence. It is not about cruelty or domination. It's about perception. When people sense that crossing you carries unseen consequences, they instinctively adjust their behavior. Jung taught that there is no coming to consciousness without pain, and fear, in its highest form, serves as that pain. It awakens awareness, builds respect, and defines boundaries. People don't always obey love, but they always respect what they fear losing. This is why true authority isn't loud or forceful. It's quiet, deliberate, and unshakable. Your energy, when grounded in silent confidence, sends an unspoken message. I am not to be underestimated. When you embody this balance, you move beyond superficial dominance. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow shows that the darkness within you, once integrated, becomes the core of your strength. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, he said, but by making the darkness conscious. When you make peace with your own shadow, others feel that power. They may not understand it consciously, but they sense that you are not easily moved, not easily deceived, and not easily controlled. That energy alone commands attention. Fear, when used with awareness, is not manipulation, it is mastery. It is the ability to hold a presence so steady that people feel your boundaries before they ever touch them. The real secret is to balance fear with utility, to make people both respect and depend on you. If they find value in your presence, while also sensing the weight of your absence, they'll never risk losing your favor. That's where true power lies, in necessity. Machiavelli once wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But spiritual mastery teaches that the highest form of power is being loved for your wisdom and feared for your certainty. You must never rely on noise to prove your strength. The more you speak, the more you give away your power. The less you react, the more mysterious and magnetic your energy becomes. People obey silence because silence holds weight. Keep your limits undefined. Uncertainty breeds respect. When no one knows exactly how far you'll go, they hesitate to test you. Your unpredictability becomes your armor. Your restraint becomes your weapon. The most ruthless aura is not born from aggression, but from emotional control. It's the energy that says, I could, but I choose not to. That choice itself is power. People who master this subtle psychology become the calm at the center of every storm. Their presence bends chaos into order. Their energy speaks a language words can't, one that says, I see everything and I react to nothing. To command such an aura, you must first conquer your own fear. The one who has faced their own darkness no longer trembles before anyone else's. When your energy is rooted in inner certainty, people instinctively align with your rhythm. They obey not out of submission, but out of recognition. They sense that to go against you would be to disturb something greater, something almost spiritual. Fear, then, becomes not a weapon of control, but a mirror of consciousness. It shows others the limits of their own power. In this way, you rise above mere manipulation and step into conscious authority. Your influence doesn't come from force. but from the unspoken gravity of your being. And that, as Carl Jung's dark wisdom reminds us, is the essence of a ruthless aura, the silent fusion of light and shadow that makes the world move around you without you ever having to lift a finger. If this message awakens something within you, the awareness that fear can be used not to dominate others, but to master yourself, then take a moment to honor that growth. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to understand the deeper layers of power, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom so you never miss another teaching on Carl Jung's dark insights into the human psyche. Comment below. I control my fear. It does not control me. And let that truth reshape your energy today. 4. Emotional detachment and inner control. To control others, you must first master yourself, because every form of true power begins within. Emotional detachment is not the absence of feeling, but the mastery of it, the ability to stand still when the world is shaking and remain calm when chaos demands your reaction. When you stop seeking approval or fearing rejection, you become unreadable, untouchable, and unmanipulable. This state of inner composure builds an aura that naturally commands respect without words. Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom reminds us that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Detachment allows you to see those unconscious patterns clearly. The impulses that once made you chase validation or fall into emotional traps. When you detach, you no longer react. You respond with intention. You become a strategist instead of a slave to your emotions. And that's when true control begins, not over others, but over the energy that drives your reality. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means emotional freedom. You stop depending on others for a sense of peace because your peace no longer depends on anything external. You no longer collapse when someone disapproves or inflate when someone praises you. You begin to see that both are illusions, two sides of the same coin used by the world to control your spirit. When you no longer play that game, you rise above it. This is the point of spiritual awakening, to realize that nothing outside of you has power unless you give it meaning. In this space of still awareness, you become like water calm on the surface, deep in essence, flowing around obstacles without resistance. People will feel your energy shift. Your silence will speak louder than their noise, and your calm will unsettle those who rely on chaos to dominate. Every emotion becomes information, not interference. You begin to sense when someone is trying to manipulate you because your awareness pierces through intention like light through fog. Your reactions slow down, your mind sharpens, and your energy stabilizes. This makes you magnetic, not because you try to attract, but because people can feel the strength of your composure. Your aura becomes one of inevitability, the kind of energy that bends others without threat, the kind of presence that doesn't demand obedience but receives it naturally. When you master detachment, you stop trying to control outcomes and start influencing them. Your energy becomes the silent authority in the room, and that is the essence of spirituality, to move through the world without being moved by it. Carl Jung believed that integration of the self is the highest form of transformation, and detachment is the door that leads there. You are no longer the puppet of emotion, but the puppeteer of your destiny. You act when necessary, speak when it serves purpose, and remain silent when power demands stillness. This is inner alchemy, turning reaction into awareness, chaos into clarity, emotion into energy. And once you reach that state, you realize you never needed to control anyone at all. You only needed to command yourself. 5. Silence and words as dual weapons. Silence conceals power in its purest form. When you master silence, you no longer need to prove, persuade, or perform. You simply exist with a quiet certainty that speaks louder than words ever could. In spirituality and spiritual growth, silence is not absence, it is containment. It shields your energy, hides your intentions, and reveals the truth of others. People expose themselves in the presence of your stillness because silence makes them uncomfortable. It compels them to fill the space with their insecurities, motives, and unfiltered emotions. The one who listens the longest always holds the upper hand. As Carl Jung said, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." Your silence becomes that secret order, a psychological mirror that reflects others while keeping your own depths unseen. Yet silence alone does not build dominance. Words, when finally spoken, must emerge with precision and power. Every word you say must serve a purpose. Every sentence must land with intention. Speak less, but when you do, let your tone be calm, your language sharp, and your message undeniable. Never justify, never explain, declare. Explanation seeks approval. Declaration commands respect. When you speak with authority, you train the energy around you to respond. People sense confidence not in how loud you are, but in how little you need to say to be understood. The energy behind your words carries conviction, and conviction is a force that bends reality. A single, deliberate statement from a centered soul can silence a room faster than any shout. The real mastery lies in balancing the dance between silence and speech. Too much silence makes you unreachable. Too much speech makes you predictable. But when you merge the two, you create rhythm, mystery, and control. Your silence builds tension. Your words release it. You become unpredictable, magnetic, and sovereign in your presence. Others instinctively lean toward you, drawn not by manipulation, but by energy, the sense that you know something they don't. This balance turns you into a living paradox. Calm, yet commanding. Still, yet unstoppable. Jung believed that the unconscious communicates through energy and symbols. When you master this dual weapon, you symbolize pure alignment, thought, emotion, and will moving as one. In this way, spirituality is no longer passive contemplation, but active influence. True spiritual growth refines your energy so that every silence, every word, every breath becomes a statement of power. You no longer react to the world, you shape it through presence. Your silence disarms the noise, your words shape reality, and your aura becomes an unspoken command. This is the essence of higher awareness. Not to control others, but to master yourself so completely that others feel your strength before you speak. Silence protects your power. Words project it. And when both move together with awareness, you stop chasing respect, you become it. Leave your like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any new insights like this one. Remember, true power lies in mastering both silence and speech. Comment below. My silence speaks louder than words. 6. The weaponization of presence. Presence is the invisible force that speaks louder than words, a field of spiritual gravity that bends the energy of a room without effort. It begins with stillness, your posture straight, your movements unhurried, your eyes steady and unflinching. You do not chase attention. You command it by existing in full awareness of your own power. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Presence is that transformation, the reaction that occurs when your energy meets the world's uncertainty and remains unmoved. In a world addicted to noise, your calm becomes magnetic. Your silence becomes sacred. People feel your stability and instinctively defer to it because it represents something they lack control over their own chaos. True presence is not about pretending to be confident. It's about cultivating inner stillness so deep that the outer world adjusts to your rhythm. Move slowly, not because you are lazy, but because you are deliberate. Hold eye contact, not to intimidate, but to reveal certainty. Speak rarely, because each word you say carries the weight of intentionality. When you become scarce, you become valuable. When your energy becomes selective, it turns into influence. Jung's spiritual wisdom reminds us that what is unconscious controls us until it is made conscious. So when you consciously embody calm and control, you shift from being a reactor to being a creator of energy. You become the gravity others orbit around. To weaponize your presence, you must first master the energy within. Straighten your spine and let your body remember its natural dignity. Breathe slowly and feel every inhale anchor you deeper into your being. Speak only when your words can alter the emotional temperature of the room. This is not arrogance, it's energetic precision. Power doesn't scream, it vibrates. It radiates through stillness, not through force. When you understand this, you no longer need to prove your worth through action. Your very existence becomes the proof. Those who cross paths with you will feel something shift inside them, a mix of respect, curiosity, and surrender. Presence, at its core, is spiritual alignment. It's when your thoughts, emotions, and body move as one. Jung taught that individuation, the journey of becoming whole, is the ultimate source of influence. When you stop fragmenting your energy between approval, fear, and comparison, your aura becomes coherent, and coherence is power. The mind naturally obeys what it perceives as stable. So when your energy is consistent, when your tone, gaze, and silence all say the same thing, others will unconsciously yield to it. They will sense that resistance is futile, not because you control them, but because you control yourself. That is the essence of the ruthless aura, the kind that makes people obey you instinctively without a single command. It's not manipulation, it's mastery. It's the understanding that influence is not gained through domination, but through energetic discipline. As the philosopher Lao Tzu once said, "He who conquers others is strong. He who conquers himself is mighty." Your presence becomes your weapon when it is backed by inner peace, and your silence becomes your authority when it is filled with conviction. So hold your gaze, slow your breath, move with purpose, and let your energy announce what your words never have to. This is the true embodiment of spiritual wisdom through the lens of Carl Jung. Power without effort, dominance without aggression, and influence born purely from inner alignment. 7. Psychological leverage and strategic influence. Power is the silent art of pulling unseen strings. And the deeper you understand human psychology, the more effortlessly you can guide behavior without force. Every person you meet is moved by two primal forces: the fear of loss and the hope of gain. If you learn to recognize which of these drives them, you unlock the ability to influence them without a single command. Watch how people talk about their dreams and disappointments. Hidden inside those words are the keys to their decisions. The one who studies others with patience and awareness becomes the quiet architect of every room they enter. This is not about manipulation for cruelty, but mastery through understanding. And it begins with spiritual awakening, the realization that all influence is first energetic before it becomes behavioral. When you tune into someone's vibration, you can feel where they are closed and where they are open, and power lies in responding to that frequency with precision rather than force. As Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The same truth applies to influence. Until you understand what drives a person unconsciously, you will keep trying to persuade with words instead of presence. To master psychological leverage, begin by observing without judgment. Notice the subtle cues: the tone that trembles when they speak of failure, the pride that inflates when they feel seen, the silence that hides an old wound. These are invisible maps to the human soul. People long to be understood, and when you give them that gift, they follow your lead without realizing it. Speak to their hidden fear, and they will listen. Affirm their secret hope, and they will move. Influence, in its purest form, is invisible manipulation, not deceit, but orchestration. It is when your words align so seamlessly with someone's inner truth that they believe it was their own thought all along. The greatest leaders, the most magnetic presences, do not shout commands. They whisper resonance. Their spirituality becomes their strategy, their emotional intelligence, their armor. This is where true power diverges from control. Control is brittle. It requires constant effort. Influence, however, flows like water, gentle but relentless, subtle yet unstoppable. When you combine awareness with calm confidence, people begin to defer to your energy instinctively. They sense steadiness, and that steadiness becomes their compass. Remember, in every interaction, there is an exchange of energy, not just words. The person with higher emotional stability holds the invisible upper hand. Spiritual wisdom teaches that energy does not lie. People may resist your words, but they cannot resist your vibration. When your energy radiates certainty and purpose, compliance becomes natural, not coerced. Therefore, refine your presence before you refine your persuasion. A silent, centered aura commands more obedience than 1,000 speeches. When your motives are clear and your emotions anchored, others feel it subconsciously and mirror it back to you. You will notice how conflicts dissolve, negotiations soften, and even resistance transforms into curiosity. This is not mysticism. It is psychology infused with spirituality. The understanding that power is not something you take, but something you embody. And when you embody it with humility and spiritual awakening, you do not just make people obey. You make them trust, align, and willingly follow your lead, believing all the while that they chose it themselves. 8. Ruthless boundaries and controlled cruelty lead to untouchability. Power is sustained not by how much you can control others, but by how clearly you define what you will no longer tolerate. Boundaries are the invisible lines that separate respect from chaos. They are the quiet laws of your spiritual kingdom. When you master the art of boundaries, you no longer beg for validation or chase approval. You become the standard. As Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." When you become aware of the patterns that make you overgive, over-explain, or over-tolerate, you awaken to your own sovereignty. Spirituality and spiritual growth demand that you rise above emotional dependency and learn the sacred language of refusal. Refusing what weakens you is not cruelty, it is alignment. Controlled cruelty is the sharp precision of a mind that knows its worth. It is the art of restraint, the ability to respond instead of react, to correct without emotional chaos. It is the boundary that says, "I do not play in disorder." This kind of cruelty is not born from hatred, it is born from clarity. When used wisely, it becomes a spiritual weapon that protects your peace and reestablishes divine order in your life. Those who misuse your kindness will learn that compassion has an edge. And it is that edge, honed by experience and silence, that teaches others not to mistake your empathy for weakness. The one who can walk away without flinching holds more power than the one who begs to be understood. Silence is not absence, it is control. In silence, you observe everything without losing your equilibrium. In detachment, you create space between stimulus and response, which is where true mastery lives. People often mistake emotional stillness for indifference, but it is in this stillness that your spiritual energy becomes magnetic. The less you reveal, the more others project their fears and desires onto you, and that is leverage. When you combine silence, detachment, and calm authority, you create an aura that commands respect without demand. Your very presence begins to alter the atmosphere. Conversations shift, eyes lower. People hesitate before crossing your line because your energy has become its own warning. Boundaries, restraint, and leverage together create untouchability, the highest form of spiritual strength. In this state, resistance collapses before it even reaches you. You are no longer reactive because nothing outside you determines your center. You become inevitable, a presence that cannot be provoked or manipulated. This is not arrogance, it is inner discipline. It is what happens when spiritual growth evolves into energetic dominance. You stop chasing, convincing, explaining. You simply are. Those who once underestimated you now sense something they can't name, the vibration of someone who has nothing to prove. This is the essence of true untouchability, the moment your peace becomes power, your silence becomes strategy, and your energy becomes law. Boundaries make you respected. Controlled cruelty makes you feared. But it is your unwavering self-awareness, born from spiritual growth, that makes you untouchable. True power doesn't need to shout. It simply exists, commanding attention through presence alone. As you step into this deeper understanding of aura and self-mastery, remember that what you project is what the world mirrors back to you. Cultivate calm confidence, refine your inner energy, and watch as people instinctively respond to your silent strength. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos filled with more insights from Carl Jung's timeless wisdom and the art of spiritual transformation. The hidden pain of INFJS and INTJS. What Carl Jung never told you. Loneliness does not come from being alone. but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. Carl Jung's words echo deeply in the hearts of INFJs and INTJs souls, who see the world not just as it is, but as it could be. In this video, we'll uncover the hidden pain behind their quiet strength, the emotional depth they rarely reveal, and the secret struggles that come with carrying such profound insight. As you listen, ask yourself, do you recognize these traits in your own journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might help someone else understand theirs. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom, where together we explore the psychology of depth, purpose, and awakening. 1. Core psychological insights. Carl Jung's perspective. Carl Jung taught that every human being is influenced by two forces: the external environment and the internal, subjective world. Most people live primarily through the external, what they see, hear, and experience. But for intuitive introverts like INFJs and INTJs, life begins within. Their existence is guided not by what the world demands, but by the subtle language of their inner images, symbols, and emotions. They are driven by the invisible, by the energy that flows beneath the surface of things. While others react to the outer world, they respond to a reality that exists in silence, deep in the soul. Jung once said that the psyche is not a blank slate. From birth, it carries within it ancient blueprints, archetypes, tendencies, and instincts that shape how we see and feel. For INFJs and INTJs, this inner inheritance is strong. They are born with a map already etched into their spirit, and their journey through life is not to create meaning, but to uncover the meaning that was always there. They move through the world like dreamers with open eyes, sensing connections and patterns that others overlook. Their imagination is not fantasy. It is an extension of truth, a bridge between consciousness and the divine field of symbols that Jung called the collective unconscious. To live with such inner clarity, however, often means to suffer. The world rarely understands those who see beneath appearances. While society celebrates speed, efficiency, and visibility, intuitive introverts crave depth, stillness, and authenticity. They are often misunderstood, labeled distant or detached, when in reality, they are simply attuned to a quieter frequency. This dissonance between inner truth and outer noise becomes their hidden pain, the loneliness of souls who feel everything yet cannot fully express it. They move through conversations that feel shallow, relationships that lack depth, and jobs that seem empty, carrying within them the burden of unseen understanding. For them, the so-called illusory world that others dismiss is more real than what meets the eye. It is made of living energy vibrations that shape emotion, intuition, and destiny. Every image that rises in their mind carries symbolic power. Every dream whispers messages from the unconscious, urging them toward growth. Jung saw this not as pathology, but as a spiritual awakening in motion, a sacred dialogue between the finite self and the infinite soul. To deny it is to repress the very essence of their being. To embrace it is to awaken to a higher state of consciousness, where intuition becomes revelation. This inner world is both sanctuary and battlefield. It grants them visionary insight, but demands solitude. It gives them purpose, but often isolates them from others. They wrestle with existential questions long before most people even notice them. Questions about destiny, identity, and the meaning of life itself. In this tension lies their pain, but also their power. For when they learn to trust their inner voice, rather than fear its depth, they transform their suffering into wisdom. Spirituality, for them, is not an escape from reality. It is the process of weaving the invisible and visible into harmony. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong task of becoming who you truly are. For INFJs and INTJs, that path is a spiritual awakening disguised as psychological struggle. It is the gradual realization that their inner vision is not a curse, but a gift meant to guide both themselves and others. Their pain becomes their initiation, their solitude, their sanctuary, their depth, their divine compass. In a world ruled by distraction, they remind humanity that the soul is still the most powerful source of truth, and that what lies within us is not illusion, but the living energy that shapes all things. Are you ready to explore the hidden depths of your mind? If this message resonates with your soul, comment below, "I'm awakening," to begin your journey into true self-understanding. 2. The nature of intuitive introverts. They live with one foot in the physical world and the other in the invisible realm of meaning, constantly moving between what can be seen and what can only be felt. These intuitive introverts, INFJs and INTJs, carry within them an ancient sensitivity that perceives more than most people realize. They don't just see faces, they sense the energy behind them. They don't just hear words, they feel the tension, the intent, the vibration that lingers beneath. Their world is built on subtleties, on the unspoken, the symbolic, the unseen connections between events that others overlook. To them, reality is a web of meaning rather than a sequence of moments. But because their perception moves in silence, it is often misunderstood. Others see their quiet nature as detachment, when in truth, they are listening deeply to people's emotions, to the atmosphere of a room, to the whisper of something greater that moves through everything. With such perception comes both depth and distance. Their ability to see through illusion often isolates them from those who live comfortably on the surface. They notice too much the motives that hide behind kindness, the sorrow that hides behind laughter, and so they learn early that not everyone wants truth. They guard their inner world carefully, retreating into solitude not out of pride, but out of necessity. The more they grow in spiritual wisdom, the more they realize that solitude is not emptiness, it is sacred space. It's where they can breathe, reflect, and realign their energy away from the chaos of superficial living. Yet even in that sanctuary, there's a quiet ache, a feeling of being alone in a world that often rewards noise more than insight. Their spiritual growth demands that they bear this loneliness as a kind of initiation, a rite that sharpens their inner clarity and deepens their empathy for those who still sleep. Over time, they develop a strange peace with being misunderstood. They begin to see their detachment not as a flaw, but as protection. For when you walk between worlds, you learn that not everyone is meant to walk with you. They carry ancient questions within them, questions about purpose, destiny, and the architecture of the soul. They wonder why they see so deeply into others, why their hearts ache for what's hidden beneath appearances. But in that wandering, they also awaken to something beautiful, the realization that their perception is not a burden, but a bridge between the human and the divine. Their spirituality teaches them to find meaning even in pain, to turn isolation into insight, and to see every emotional wound as a door toward transformation. Still, the pain runs quietly through their lives. They long to be understood, but refuse to betray their depth to gain acceptance. They watch the world chase distractions and wonder why people are afraid of silence, why truth makes so many uncomfortable. In those moments, they often feel invisible, like observers in a world that values noise over awareness. But it is precisely this distance that allows them to see what others cannot: the subtle harmony behind chaos, the divine rhythm hidden inside uncertainty. Their spiritual growth depends on embracing this paradox to remain grounded in the physical world while never losing sight of the unseen one that gives it meaning. So they move through life as silent healers, absorbing energies, sensing shifts, translating the language of the soul into understanding. They carry the invisible weight of knowing, yet also the quiet joy of seeing beauty others overlook. Their inner world becomes their cathedral, their perception, their prayer. And though they often feel alone in a shallow world, they are never truly lonely because their depth connects them to the heartbeat of existence itself, where every act of awareness becomes an offering to the mystery that made them. Comment below: I embrace my inner intuition. If you're ready to honor the quiet strength within you and walk the path of true self-understanding. 3. Why they suffer. The suffering of INFJS and INTJS runs deeper than words can express. It is not a wound of the body, but of the soul, a quiet, aching loneliness that comes from being unseen in a world that rarely understands depth. They move through life with the feeling of being invisible, their inner world vast and intricate, yet hidden behind calm expressions. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." This is their silent truth. They live in a constant state of perception, sensing the emotional temperature of every room, decoding every tone, every gesture, every silence. To others, they may seem distant, but within, they are overwhelmed by constant internal analysis, where even the smallest interaction can spiral into hours of reflection and self-questioning. Their minds are not wired for the surface. They are built to see beneath it. Society calls them overthinkers, but this label misses the essence of who they are. Their way of thinking is not excess, it is precision. They are attuned to patterns that others cannot see, to emotional currents that flow beneath words, to the subtle energy that shapes every human exchange. They do not simply live in the world, they interpret it. But this heightened awareness comes with a cost. Each emotion they sense, each unspoken truth they uncover, sinks into them like a weight. They feel everything deeply, and that sensitivity often turns into exhaustion. The noise of the world becomes too loud, the emotions of others too heavy, and so they retreat not out of arrogance, but out of self-preservation. Their solitude is a sanctuary where they can breathe again, where they can quiet the storm within. For INFJS and INTJS, silence is not emptiness, it is medicine. It allows them to return to their own energy after being flooded by everyone else's. Yet even in solitude, there lingers a longing for a wish to be truly understood without having to explain, to meet someone who speaks the language of depth. They crave authentic connection, but the modern world often rewards the superficial. Conversations about meaning, soul, or purpose are seen as strange, and so they learn to hide their light, to dim their intensity for the comfort of others. But the truth is, this depth is their spiritual wisdom, their divine gift. Jung believed that such souls were necessary for the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming one's truest self. Their path may be lonely, but it is sacred. It is through their introspection, their emotional insight, and their quiet strength that they awaken others to what truly matters. Every INFJ and INTJ carries a kind of ancient knowing, an intuitive intelligence that feels both a blessing and a burden. They read emotions like sacred texts. They sense energy shifts before words are spoken, and they often see through illusions others build their lives around. This constant awareness can feel like walking through the world without armor. And yet, within this sensitivity lies power. When they stop resisting their nature and begin to honor it, they transform their suffering into wisdom. Their empathy becomes their compass, their solitude becomes their strength, and their deep perception becomes their way of healing others. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For these intuitive souls, that means embracing their complexity instead of apologizing for it. Their inner pain is not a flaw to be fixed. It is the price of deep consciousness. And when they learn to carry it with grace, they become living proof that spiritual awakening often begins with understanding the beauty hidden inside our pain. If you've ever felt the quiet suffering of seeing too deeply and feeling too much, know that you're not alone. Like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's heal and grow together through this journey of spiritual wisdom. 4. Inner conflict. From a young age, INFJs and INTJs carry a quiet awareness that they are different while others chase noise and novelty. They are drawn to truth, purpose, and the invisible dimensions of life. Their minds reach beyond what is seen, searching for something that feels real in a world obsessed with appearances. This early sense of disconnection is not arrogance, but the first whisper of spiritual awakening, a sign that their consciousness is wired for depth, not distraction. Yet that same depth soon becomes a burden, for the world rarely celebrates those who think, feel, and see too much. They begin to learn that their inner world, vast, mysterious, and alive with questions, must often be hidden to survive among those who live only on the surface. As adults, they wear masks not out of deceit, but necessity, softening their truth so they can coexist in a culture that values conformity more than authenticity. They smile while their thoughts travel through invisible universes. They nod while others discuss what feels meaningless. Beneath their calm expression lies a storm of insight, intuition, and longing for real connection. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate things that seem important to you." This is the quiet ache that defines their life, being surrounded by people, yet feeling unseen, being heard, yet never understood. The more they try to express their truth, the more they're told it's too serious, too complex, or too heavy, and so they retreat into silence, convinced that their depth is a flaw. But that silence becomes sacred ground, the place where their spirituality matures. Their inner world, though unseen, becomes their temple. It's where they meet themselves and the universe in secret, learning that understanding doesn't always come from others. Sometimes it comes from solitude. Their pain is not the pain of weakness, but of awakening. To be spiritually awake in a world asleep is to carry both blessing and burden. The INFJ and INTJ learn that their suffering is not punishment, it is refinement. Like gold in the fire, their soul is being purified through misunderstanding and isolation. What they feel as rejection is often protection, a divine barrier separating them from what would dull their light. Each time they suppress their truth to fit in, they build endurance. Each time they are misunderstood, they strengthen the bond with their higher self. Their spiritual awakening deepens not through praise, but through solitude, where clarity grows stronger than comfort. They begin to realize that the purpose of their depth is not to be validated, but to transform the world quietly through presence, compassion, and insight. The world may call them distant, but in truth, they are simply tuned to a higher frequency one that resonates with meaning rather than noise. They are not lost souls, but silent architects of consciousness, bridging logic and intuition, intellect and soul. This is the hidden pain of the wise: to be seen but not known, to walk among many yet belong to few. But within that pain lies their greatest power. Because once they stop apologizing for their depth, once they honor their own rhythm instead of chasing the world's approval, they become unstoppable forces of transformation. Their calm becomes magnetic, their silence becomes eloquence, and their presence becomes light. Through this sacred inner journey, INFJS and INTJS learn that spirituality is not about escaping the world, but carrying their truth within it, and that the very pain that once isolated them was, in truth, their initiation into spiritual wisdom. If this message resonates with your inner world, share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's support each other through this journey of self-understanding and healing. Together, we can turn inner conflict into spiritual growth and peace. 5. Jung's deeper meaning. Carl Jung once described INFJS and INTJS as mediators of the collective unconscious, the hidden carriers of humanity's symbols, emotions, and forgotten wisdom. Within them lies a rare gift: the ability to sense what others cannot see, to translate invisible truths into understanding, and to hold both the shadow and the light of human experience. Yet this gift is also their greatest pain. When they deny this inner calling, when they silence their intuition or conform to a world that values logic over depth, their soul begins to ache. They lose meaning, fall into melancholy, and drift through life wondering why they feel disconnected even in a crowd. Their pain is not weakness. It is a symptom of resisting their true nature, of turning away from their spiritual purpose. INFJS and INTJS experience the world through emotional resonance and intuitive perception. They sense unspoken feelings, see through pretenses, and recognize patterns others overlook. In spirituality, this sensitivity is a higher awareness, a direct link to the unseen forces shaping human behavior. But in everyday life, it often feels like a curse. The noise, chaos, and superficiality of the modern world overwhelm them. They feel too much, think too deeply, and love too purely. They often find themselves misunderstood, judged for being too distant or too intense, when in truth, they are simply exhausted from feeling everything so deeply. Their pain is the weight of carrying both their own emotions and those of others, an invisible burden that slowly teaches them the necessity of solitude and boundaries. The turning point comes when they stop resisting this inner power. Jung believed that the unconscious does not only hide darkness, it also holds divine wisdom. When INFJs and INTJs embrace their depth instead of fearing it, They discover that their pain has always been a doorway to transformation. Through spiritual growth, the shadows they once suppressed become sources of strength. Their sensitivity becomes intuition. Their isolation becomes clarity, and their suffering becomes compassion. What once felt like alienation transforms into a profound sense of purpose. The realization that their role is not to fit into the world, but to awaken it. Their inner visions, when expressed through art, writing, teaching, or leadership, become healing channels for others. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For INFJs and INTJs, that truth means accepting that their depth is sacred. They are not here to be ordinary. They are here to be spiritual mirrors, reflecting back to humanity what it refuses to see. Their journey of spiritual growth is not about escaping sensitivity, but mastering it, transforming it into wisdom, empathy, and quiet power. When they stop apologizing for their intensity and start honoring their spiritual design, they become living proof that pain can be turned into purpose and loneliness into light. Their lives remind us that the deepest souls are not those untouched by pain, but those who have learned to turn pain into healing for themselves and for the world. When you start to question deeply, you begin to see beyond appearances, just as Carl Jung taught. True wisdom comes from facing your inner truth. If you're ready to look within and find freedom through understanding, type in the comments, "I seek deeper meaning." Let this be your declaration of self-awareness and transformation. 6. The path to healing and joy. Joy is born not from escaping the world, but from embracing solitude as a sacred space where creation, reflection, and service become acts of spiritual awakening. When you sit in silence, not to hide but to listen, you begin to hear the quiet language of your own soul. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." In that stillness, you awaken not through noise or distraction, but through the gentle unfolding of inner truth. For INFJs and INTJs, solitude is not punishment. It is purification. It is the place where you transform confusion into clarity, pain into poetry, and emotion into form. Each moment spent journaling, painting, writing, or simply walking in nature is not an escape from reality, but a dialogue with the unseen world within you. Through this dialogue, you start to understand that your emotions are not burdens to be carried, but messages to be translated, symbols of the unconscious seeking expression through you. Your gift lies in your ability to build bridges between the conscious and the unconscious, between the material and the mystical. This is where true spiritual wisdom unfolds. You are not just a thinker or a dreamer. You are an alchemist, turning invisible feelings into visible creations. Through art, music, writing, mentoring, and deep conversation, you give shape to what others can only sense. You carry within you the power to heal, to guide, and to awaken, not by avoiding solitude, but by entering it with intention. When solitude is chosen with awareness, it becomes a sanctuary, a temple where you meet your own divinity. Within that sacred stillness, you discover that healing is not about fixing what is broken, but honoring what is sacred within your sensitivity. As you transform your emotions into creative expression, you fulfill your soul's highest purpose to bring light into form. Joy flows naturally when your solitude becomes purposeful, when reflection turns into revelation, and when your inner world meets the world beyond. Carl Jung believe that creativity is the bridge through which the unconscious communicates with the conscious mind. And through that bridge, you find not only healing, but wholeness. So each time you pick up your pen, play a melody, or share your truth in conversation, you are engaging in an act of spiritual alchemy, turning the lead of sorrow into the gold of wisdom. In this transformation, solitude stops feeling like isolation and begins to feel like communion. A quiet meeting between your human self and your higher self. It is there, in that sacred meeting place, that true joy emerges. You realize that your depth is not a curse, but a calling, that your quietness is not emptiness, but fertile ground for creation. And as you live with greater intention, every breath, every thought, and every act of creation becomes a bridge to something eternal, the living proof that the most profound healing comes from within. And so, the hidden pain of INFJs and INTJs is not weakness. It's the silent evidence of depth, of souls who feel too much, see too far, and care too deeply in a world that often misunderstands them. Remember, your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's your spiritual compass, guiding you toward truth, authenticity, and awakening. Never dim your inner light just because others can't handle its intensity. If this message resonates with you, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming explorations into the soul, the psyche, and the wisdom of Carl Jung.